Chapter 1. Under the golden glow of the setting sun, the bustling streets of Lagos pulsed with life. The scent of roasted plantains mixed with the salty breeze from the nearby Atlantic, and the honking of impatient drivers filled the humid evening air. Street vendors called out their wares, from fresh fruits to colorful Ankara fabrics, creating a symphony of sounds that defined the city's heartbeat. Zara navigated the lively market, her steps light but determined. She was a woman with a mission, balancing her passion for storytelling with the reality of her corporate job. She had just wrapped up a long day at the media house where she worked as a journalist and had stopped by the market to pick up a few things before heading home. Her deep brown eyes, full of curiosity, scanned the crowd as she carefully stepped past a group of excited children chasing after a makeshift kite crafted from discarded newspapers and twigs. Just as she reached for a ripe mango at a vendor's store, a strong hand reached for the same fruit at the exact moment. Zara looked up, slightly startled, her gaze meeting the warm brown eyes of a tall, well dressed man. He had the kind of presence that commanded attention, not just because of his well groomed beard and tailored shirt, but because of the quiet confidence he exuded. I'm sorry, he said, his Ghanaian accent adding a melodic rhythm to his words. I didn't mean to intrude. Please go ahead. Zara hesitated for a moment before letting out a soft laugh. No need to apologize. There's enough mangoes for both of us. He smiled, revealing a set of perfectly white teeth. Kofi, he introduced himself, offering his hand. She took it, feeling the warmth of his grip. Zara. Nice to meet you, Zara. You seem to know your way around this market. I, on the other hand, am completely lost. Zara arched an eyebrow playfully. A Ghanaian lost in Lagos? That's a first. What brings you here? Kofi chuckled. Business, mostly. I'm exploring opportunities in the media and tech space, but clearly, I need a better GPS to navigate this city. Their brief exchange turned into an extended conversation as they strolled through the market. Kofi's interest in media sparked Zara's curiosity, and soon they were discussing everything from the evolving digital landscape in Africa to their favorite childhood books. They paused at a roadside stand where an old woman sold freshly roasted groundnuts, and Zara bought a small packet, offering some to Kofi. You must try these. Lagos groundnuts are the best. He popped a few into his mouth and nodded appreciatively. Crunchy. I approve. The sun dipped lower, casting an amber hue over the city. Neither of them had noticed how time had slipped by. As they stood near a small bridge overlooking the lagoon, the city lights beginning to twinkle in the distance, Kofi turned to Zara with an expression of intrigue. You know, I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you today. This city moves fast, but you have this grounded energy. It's refreshing. Zara felt a warmth rise in her chest. Maybe it's Lagos working its magic, or maybe some meetings are just meant to happen. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, an unspoken promise lingering between them. The streets of Lagos had brought them together, and though they didn't yet realize it, this chance meeting was only the beginning of a story neither of them could have written alone. Chapter 2. Zara and Kofi's paths continued to cross as if fate itself was determined to weave their stories together. Days after their first meeting, Kofi found himself thinking about Zara more often than he expected. Her passion, her sharp wit, and the way she carried herself with quiet confidence had left an impression on him. He wasn't sure if it was coincidence or something more, but Lagos seemed determined to bring them together again. Zara, too, felt a shift within her. She had always been a believer in destiny, but she never thought she'd find herself drawn to someone so quickly. Her life was structured, mapped out with careful precision, yet the memory of Kofi's laughter, the sincerity in his eyes, disrupted that routine in the most unexpected way. It was during a media industry networking event that fate intervened again. As Zara stood with her colleagues, discussing the challenges of African storytelling in the digital age. A familiar voice cut through the crowd. I was hoping I'd run into you again. She turned, a smile forming as she saw Kofi approaching. Dressed in a sleek navy blazer over a crisp white shirt, he exuded effortless confidence. Kofi, she greeted warmly. Lagos seems smaller than I thought. Or maybe we were just meant to meet again, he replied, a twinkle in his eye. For the rest of the evening, they found themselves in deep conversation, oblivious to the bustling event around them. Their connection deepened as they discovered shared dreams of amplifying African narratives on the global stage. Kofi spoke passionately about his vision of using technology to bridge gaps in storytelling, while Zara shared her ambition of launching an independent media platform that celebrated authentic African voices. As the night drew to a close, Kofi hesitated before speaking. Would you like to continue this conversation over dinner sometime? Zara felt a spark of excitement, but she kept her composure. I'd like that. With the promise of another meeting, they parted ways, both unaware of how deeply this pull of destiny would shape their lives. Chapter 3. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship grew, laced with stolen glances and lingering conversations. Zara found herself looking forward to Kofi's messages. The thoughtful voice notes he sent when he came across something he thought she'd find interesting. Kofi, in turn, discovered that Lagos didn't feel as foreign anymore. It felt like a city where he was meant to be, where something special was unfolding. One evening, they attended an art exhibition together, an event showcasing contemporary African artists. As they walked through the gallery, Kofi observed Zara's fascination with a particular painting, a baobab tree standing alone in the savannah, its roots deep and branches wide, as if whispering secrets to the wind. Do you know what the baobab tree symbolizes? Kofi asked. Zara nodded. Strength, resilience, wisdom. It's a storyteller in its own right. He watched her, admiration shining in his eyes. Just like you. Zara felt a blush creep up her neck. Smooth, Kofi. Very smooth. He grinned. I mean it. As the night ended, he walked her to her car. A soft breeze rustled through the palm trees, and for a brief moment they stood in comfortable silence. Then Kofi reached out, tucking a stray curl behind Zara's ear. I don't know where this is going, but I'd like to find out, he admitted. Zara met his gaze, her heart pounding softly. Me too. The night felt electric, charged with unspoken emotions. The slow bloom of something beautiful had begun, and neither of them wanted to stop it. Chapter 4. The weeks turned into months, and what had started as a chance meeting at the market had blossomed into something neither Zara nor Kofi could easily define. Their moments together were effortless, late night phone calls filled with laughter, Sunday brunches where they debated the best jollof rice, and long walks by the Lagos waterfront where silence spoke louder than words. But love, no matter how bright, is never without its shadows. Zara was ambitious, her career climbing steadily as she took on bigger stories, each one pulling her deeper into the pulse of the city. Kofi, on the other hand, was restless, his business ventures demanding more of him. With increasing trips back to Accra, the space between them, once unnoticed, had started to stretch. One evening, as they sat on Zara's balcony overlooking the flickering city lights, the weight of unspoken thoughts settled between them. You've been quiet today, Kofi observed, his voice gentle. Zara sighed, tracing the rim of her wine glass. Just thinking about. She hesitated, then met his gaze. Distance, time, us. Kofi exhaled slowly, placing his glass down. I know I've been away a lot, but Zara, you're always on the move too. She nodded. I know, and that's what scares me. What happens when we're both too busy to meet in the middle? Kofi reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. We figure it out. Because this, He gestured between them. This isn't something I want to lose. Zara looked into his eyes, searching for certainty. The city hummed below them, as if waiting for her answer. Neither do I, she whispered, and for that moment, that was enough. Chapter 5. The Lagos skyline shimmered under the morning sun as Zara hurried through the doors of her office. Her latest investigative piece on corruption in the oil sector had just been published, and the newsroom was buzzing with energy. She loved this rush, the thrill of uncovering the truth, the weight of her words shaping public opinion. But today something else was on her mind. Kofi was leaving for Accra again. She checked her phone. No messages yet. He had promised to see her before his flight. She hated the way goodbyes had become routine between them, the way she had started bracing for the empty spaces his absence left behind. Just as she settled at her desk, her phone buzzed. Kofi, meet me for lunch. One last meal before I go. She smiled softly, her fingers hovering over the keyboard before she replied. Zara, see you at our spot. At the small cafe where they first had coffee, Kofi was already waiting when Zara arrived. He stood as she approached, pulling her into a warm embrace. I was starting to think you wouldn't make it, he teased. She rolled her eyes playfully. You underestimate my ability to multitask. They ordered their usual jollof rice for Kofi, grilled fish, and plantains for Zara, but the air between them felt heavier today, as if both were too aware of the ticking clock. Kofi sighed, stirring his drink. Zara, I've been thinking. That sounds serious. He hesitated. I want you to come to Accra with me. Zara blinked. What? Not permanently, he added quickly. Just for a while. I want you to see my world, meet my family, understand the other half of me. Her heart pounded. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to be the kind of woman who followed love wherever it led. But her career, her life in Lagos, it wasn't something she could just step away from. Kofi, I want to, she said carefully. But my job, I know, he interjected. I'm not asking you to leave everything behind. Just come for a short visit. She studied his face, the hope, the longing, and against the tide of her usual pragmatism, she found herself nodding. Okay, she whispered. Kofi exhaled in relief, reaching across the table to hold her hand. You won't regret it. She hoped he was right. Chapter 6. Ghana greeted Zara with open arms. The scent of grilled kebabs and fried plantains filled the air as she stepped out of Kotoka International Airport. The streets of Accra buzzed with a different rhythm, slower than Lagos, yet equally alive. Kofi guided her through the city with effortless ease, pointing out landmarks, stopping to buy Kelly from a roadside vendor, stealing glances at her as she took it all in. Welcome to my world, he said, his voice warm. And for the first time in a long time, Zara felt like she was stepping into something unknown, something beautiful. Kofi's family home was a traditional compound style house in a quiet neighborhood. The moment they arrived, Zara was engulfed in the warmth of his relatives. His mother, a regal woman with a strong presence, his sister Amma, who eyed her with curiosity, and his grandmother, who simply smiled and said, You look like someone with a strong spirit. Dinner was a feast: wakie, shito, grilled fish, and fried yams. As they ate, Kofi's mother watched Zara closely, finally speaking as the meal neared its end. You are a journalist? She asked. Zara nodded. Yes, ma. And your family? Are they from Lagos? Zara hesitated. Yes, but my father's family is originally from Abeokuta. Kofi's mother pursed her lips thoughtfully. You must come from strong stock then. Zara smiled, unsure if it was a compliment or a test. As the night wore on, Kofi pulled Zara aside. I think they like you, he whispered. Zara laughed softly. I think they're still deciding. But deep down, she knew this was more than just a visit. It was the start of something bigger, something neither of them could yet define. Chapter 7. As Zara and Kofi's relationship deepened, so did the expectations of those around them. When Kofi invited Zara to Accra to meet his family, she was both excited and nervous. The trip was a significant step, signaling the seriousness of their relationship. Accra greeted her with a different rhythm from Lagos, less chaotic but equally alive. The scent of grilled tilapia and waki filled the air, and the hum of high life music played in the background. Kofi's home was in East Legon, a spacious, elegant house that spoke of his family's affluence. His mother, Mame Efua, welcomed her with polite warmth, but Zara couldn't shake the feeling of being evaluated. During dinner, Mame Efua's questions were careful but pointed. Zara, I hear you are a journalist, a demanding profession, no doubt. Do you plan to settle in Ghana? Zara hesitated. I love my work, but I'm open to new possibilities. The older woman smiled, but something in her eyes remained guarded. A woman's stability is important, especially when thinking of family. Kofi squeezed Zara's hand under the table, but she knew this was just the beginning of proving herself. Chapter 8. Back in Lagos, Zara's career took an unexpected turn. Her editor assigned her to cover a major corruption scandal that would require months of investigation and travel. It was the kind of opportunity she had worked for her entire career, but it also meant less time with Kofi. As she sat across from him at their favorite cafe, she broke the news. Kofi, I have to take this. It's the kind of story that could change my career. His expression darkened. And what about us? Are you saying we'll put everything on hold? She sighed. I don't want to, but I can't ignore this opportunity. Kofi exhaled sharply. Zara, we need to figure out what we're building here. Love needs presence, not just promises. For the first time, doubt seeped into their love story. They were at a crossroads, one that would test not only their commitment, but also their willingness to fight for each other.